Good afternoon, everyone. Got a lively bunch here. So welcome to the College of Arts and Sciences virtual 3-minute thesis competition. I'm Stephen Mutch. I work in the Dean's office in IT. And just to give you a brief overview of the 3-minute thesis. So the 3-minute thesis, or the 3MT for short, is a research communication competition developed by the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. PhD competitors must present a compelling oration on their thesis and its significance. To throw a wrench into things, the competitors have 3 minutes and not a second more to share their thesis. In 3MT, if the competitors keep talking, they are disqualified. Please note that a 3-minute countdown timer will be displayed on each competition slide. If a technical complication happens during the competition, due to no fault of the competitor, the person will be allowed to restart. 3MT is not an exercise in dumbing down research, but challenges students to consolidate their ideas and research discoveries so they can be presented to a non-specialist audience. The first place winner of today's competition will receive a $1,000 award. The college's second place winner will receive a $750 reward. And the third place winner will receive a $500 award. Not too shabby. Perhaps even more important, the winner from today's competition will represent the College of Arts and Sciences at the university-wide 3MT event, which is going to be held on March 26, 2025 at 1 o'clock in the Veterinary and Biomedical Research Building, VBRB room 305, and further instructions will be provided to the winner. At the university-wide competition, the winners from each college will compete for prizes that are a lot higher. The winner receives $3,000, second place $1,500, and $500 for third place. More on the 3-minute thesis can be found at 3mt.wsu.edu. Alrighty, so it is time to meet the judges and the competitors. And I'll just have each of you just kind of raise your hand instead of make you stand up. All right, so our first judge, Diamond Beverly Porter. And Diamond is an assistant professor in the Department of Digital Technology and Culture and specializes in immersive, interactive technologies and game design. Additionally, she works as a research and supportive outreach lead for the South Dallas Prophet, the SMART Project. Professor Porter is interested in communication across mediums that acknowledge and play with the existing relations of power, Black culture, and narrative. Through her remixing of theories and praxis, Professor Porter seeks to capture the nuances of the Black experience in the present tense with her creative works, writing, and digital games. Paul Buckley. Paul Buckley is a career track professor in the Department of Chemistry, where he teaches in the General Chemistry program and serves as the Director of Undergraduate Studies. His service activities include Faculty Senate, the Academic Affairs Committee, Faculty Director for the Student Book Corporation. He's also the chair of the local section of the American Chemical Society, engaging in outreach activities to the community, such as the annual Chemical Olympiad held recently at WSU for Pullman and Moscow high school students, and events at the Palouse Discovery Science Center. J.J. Hardy is an engineering technician for the Department of Art, and in his position, J.J. works hands-on with the students in the Department of Art 3D area to help construct physical objects based on conceptual ideas. He runs several areas in the department, including a wood shop, a metal shop, foundry, and a digital fabrication lab. JJ's personal artwork currently focuses on consumer objects that are either abandoned or obsolete and are then reworked into something new. Erica Crespi. Erica is professor in the School of Biological Sciences, director of the Hudson Biological Reserve, and the Aquatics Phenomics Research Center. She's also the chair of the President's Commission for the Status of Women, a College of Arts and Sciences faculty fellow. Dr. Crespi is an integrative biologist who focuses on understanding how environmental stressors and nutrition experienced during early development shape physiology, behavior, and health throughout life in wildlife and humans. She is also on the executive committees of the Rivers, Watersheds, and Communities Graduate Research Training Program and the Biological Resilience for Indigenous Systems Empowerment Post-Baccalaureate Program. That's a mouthful. So the judges will, I think I got everybody, right? Okay, good. So the judges will give the scores based on comprehension and content, as well as engagement and communication. After the 5 competitors are finished, the scores will be collected and tallied. The average for each will give us a clear winner. In the case of an apparent tie, the highest score in the comprehension and content section will be the winner. The decision of this adjudicating panel will be final. And now for your competitors listed in the randomized order that they will present, and please hold your applause until the end. First up, we have James Schroeder and the History degree program. Next, we have Nazua Idris in English Literary Studies. And then we have Desmond Aboagye in Plant Biology. Next is Abbas Mammadov, degree program Political Science and Government. Shamila Gopalakrishnan with the degree program Chemistry. And Colby Schimelfenig, degree program Physics and Astronomy. And Yin Ru Chen in Political Science. So after the competitors are finished and the judging is complete and we have the results, I will announce the winners. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the competitors, starting with James Schroeder. And the title of his presentation is An American Foreign Legion, the Recruitment of European Refugees for the United States Military and Psychological Warfare Programs during the early Cold War. So we'll have James take it away.
Thank you. Okay. Well, my research examines how and why the Truman administration recruited German and Eastern European veterans, scientists, and refugees for diverse military research, intelligence, and psychological warfare programs targeting the Soviet Union in the aftermath of World War II. Project Paperclip recruited hundreds of German scientists for military research programs in the United States. At the same time, the Army employed German POWs to write histories for use in strategic planning and constructed a German-staffed intelligence organization to spy on Soviet territory. As this was going on, tens of thousands of German and Soviet bloc nationals enlisted in Army labor service units to provide the maintenance and construction services that allowed the U.S. Army to operate in Germany. These programs emerged during World War II as Army initiatives to exploit refugee labor and capture technology, but they evolved during the 1940s in response to Cold War tensions to increasingly target the Soviet Union. By 1950, the Army employed Soviet bloc nationals as liaison officers capable of contacting anti-communist dissidents behind the Iron Curtain. The CIA pursued their own operations, parachuting Ukrainian nationalists into the Soviet Union to contact partisans and establish an early warning system against Soviet attack. To ensure that the tens of thousands of Soviet bloc refugees in Europe who were not employed in these Army and CIA operations could still support US Cold War objectives, in 1952, the Truman administration established the US Escapee Program. This psychological warfare initiative provided refugee aid and resettlement services to Soviet bloc refugees to advertise American generosity to the world. Programs like Project Paperclip are well known to historians, while others like the Escapee program are almost forgotten. My research breaks ground by demonstrating how these programs complemented and support each other, while illustrating that many American national programs were actually staffed by foreign nationals. The legacy of these programs can be seen today, including the CIA's authority to conduct covert operations, which it initially received in the late 1940s so it could establish partnerships with emigre groups, to the fact that everything from satellites to cell phone batteries rely on technology developed by these programs. Today, foreign aid programs are often depicted as wasted money, but my study demonstrates that the Truman administration's efforts to recruit and support foreign nationals tangibly benefited US national security. Thank you.
All right, so next up is Nazua Idris, who will present on Unsilencing Colonized and Enslaved Voices, Decolonizing the 19th Century British Literary Canon through Counter-Narratives.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So as a researcher in 19th century British literary studies coming from Bangladesh, a former colony of Britain, I have always struggled to find the voices of my own people and the voices and lived experiences of the people who went through similar colonial violence. So the pedagogical and scholarly practices of 19th century literary studies till date is still very colonized because they are revolving around the text written by white British authors. So I kept questioning myself, like, why don't we talk about the people who actually lived during 19th century and who wrote or narrated their experiences? So that, like, finding answer to that question took me to the archives in the UK, where I uncovered a large number of testimonial narratives narrated by the formerly enslaved people from the West Indies. So in my dissertation, I call for decolonizing the 19th century literary studies by including those testimonial narratives. I call these narratives counter-narratives because counter-narratives are stories that are told by the marginalized groups that challenges the dominant narratives. And in this case, definitely the narratives that was disseminated by the British colonizers. So how I model this work of decoloniality, so I do this by offering these texts as alternatives to the British literary text. And then I also offer some editorial principles to recategorize these texts based on the identities of the enslaved people. Right now, they are categorized based on the identities of their white enslavers and the British colonial administration. And then I offer, then I'm building an archive where I'm curating these texts to make them worldwide accessible. And then I also am designing classroom materials and teaching projects so that, like, people who want to use this text to diversify their curriculum can do that. And finally, I also collaborated with the high school teachers to work on this text in terms of, like, their high school classrooms, like how they can incorporate them in their high school classroom. Why do we care? So these texts are the only surviving historical records of these people. So as a researcher, my role does not end with like just recovering them and writing about them. It also entails that I preserve them, I make them accessible, and I also make sure to include them in curriculum so that they are disseminated and lived through for generations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nazua. For our next contestant, we have Desmond Aboagye, who will present on the physiological relationship between pruning and sieve tube conductivity.
Thank you. For decades, our forefathers and current farmers have adopted a simple non-synthetic approach to enhance fruit yield, pruning. And what pruning is simply removing part of the plant and leaving a few, for example, stems with fruit as an approach to enhance fruit yield. For so many years, this technique was passed on from farmer to farmer, but nowadays it has been adopted as a key, highly important practice in major fruit crop production. But the concept of pruning is quite counterintuitive because photosynthesis happens in the leaves, and then the sugars are translocated to the fruits that are of economic importance to us as humans. And so if you want bigger fruit, you would want more sugars to be loaded into the fruit, which means you would want more sugars to be produced. And sugars are produced in the leaves. And so how do we get bigger fruit when we take some of the leaves off? And this is what my PhD dissertation is about. In fact, what we know now is that when you prune the plant, the photosynthetic capacity of each leaf increases significantly. And what that means is that every leaf is now producing more sugars. But for so many years, we've known that the photosynthetic capacity of a leaf is limited by the transport mechanism. What this means is that the transporting tubule, which is made up of cells that are stuck on top of each other, and these cells have rigid cell walls. And so if the transporting tubule is full of sugars, then the photosynthetic capacity of the leaf is downregulated. So what I am focused on is trying to understand how we prune, which means we take more leaves off, and then the plant is still able to achieve higher yield. The simple question that we are asking is the plant adjusting the sieve tube? Because that is the only way we'll be able to send more sugars. And so what you see up here is apple samples that we have worked on, and what we do is we prune the plant and we analyze the sieve tube, which is the phloem that is transporting the sugars. Now, if the plant is adjusting the sieve tube, then this is a highly important knowledge, because what this means is that we really do not need fertilizers. If we can enhance the transport tubule, we can enhance photoassimilate supply to the fruit, which means we can achieve higher yield. And we don't have to reduce the number of fruit, for instance, from 100 to 50 if we want to get bigger fruit. We can maintain the same number of fruit and achieve higher yield. And this will be the new approach to enhancing fruit yield and food production in the whole world. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Abbas Mammadov, whose presentation is titled A Measure of Government Stability, How Chief Executives' Individual Characteristics Impact Staff Turnover Within the Security Council.
Thank you. Hello. Yes. Key decisions of foreign policy and national security are made by heads of government, like presidents, and there are key people in government who advise presidents on these national security decisions. So it's important to understand how leaders interact with their inner circle and to understand how those decisions are made. Just by taking a look at these three cases, Russia, Azerbaijan, and Kazakhstan, we see that there are 7 to 8 individuals who advise president on national security questions. A closer look at the table shows that over more than 20 years, President Putin removed just 3 individuals from his inner circle, which means he has much more stable cabinet compared to others. Now, this is puzzling. How to understand this puzzle? Here I look at individual characteristics of these leaders. specific traits like need for power, which helps us to assess to what extent leaders want to assert control over decision making. Cognitive complexity. A high complexity means that leaders can process different perspectives and complex environment. A high task focus means leaders are goal-oriented. A low task focus means leaders are more relationship-oriented. The major challenge is how to study these leaders at a distance, because I have no direct access to these presidents. I cannot go simply interview them. Here we have a good technique called leadership trait analysis, which helps us to collect textual data such as speeches and interviews produced by these leaders, and then calculate specific words and phrases that inform us about each trait. And after acquiring these scores, I can compare those scores to a larger pool of political leaders. The initial finding of my research shows that the leaders score similarly to most of traits, but for cognitive complexity, where President Tokayev has the lowest score, which explains why he has the least stable cabinet among all these leaders. Yet the major puzzle of the research hasn't been solved. Why Putin has the most stable cabinet? To account for this, I am contributing to a larger pool of research by incorporating policy experience as a dynamic element of personality. As time passes, leaders become more experienced, and I argue that with more policy experience, these leaders can assess diverse perspectives and complex environment and information around them. So combination of policy experience as a dynamic element of personality with more stable elements of personality, these are the three leadership traits. I hope on my second stage of my research to find better answer for the puzzle we have. And the future research obviously needs to incorporate more cases, maybe from post-Soviet space or more other non-democratic regimes, to make the finding of this research more valuable and reliable. Thank you very much.
Alrighty, up next is Shamila Gopalakrishnan, whose presentation is titled Tiny Carries, Remedy for Unmet Medical Needs, Smart Drug Delivery Systems for Ocular and Brain Diseases.
So how many of you had any sort of medications at least once in your lifetime? Think about it. Obviously, I'll say yes, right? Now, I want you to think about what sort of medication you had. Pills, creams, ointments, drops, injection, and so on. However, all these medications are not showing the effectiveness what you think. Because, for an example, if you take Tylenol, so 2 tablets we are taking, and every 4 to 6 hours we have to take those Tylenols. So what might be the reason? What's the reason for this repetitive medication pattern? The reason is our body has so many biological barriers which can stop those medications, penetration, and the localization. So my research is focused on how we can deliver these drugs to the specific site without any loss. To talk about my research, I want you to all to take your childhood memory. So that I'm going to talk about our story, that's Chicken Run. So in the Chicken Run movie, there are some chickens where they want to escape from a chicken farm. And obviously, so the chickens, if they are unable to lay some eggs, the particular amount of eggs, they have to be either in the frying pan or in the soup for dinner or breakfast, right? So they have planned to build an aeroplane. And finally, in the climax of the story, the chicken farmer got to know about this secret, and she wants to stop the escapism. However, their chicken's braveness and the design of the aeroplane made this work, and they have escaped to the dreamland. The similar way, instead of aeroplane, I'm building a nano carrier which can load any type of drugs and any amount of drugs. In the Chicken Run story, the chickens are carried by the aeroplane. However, in my research, the drugs are carried by the nano carrier. Obviously, the villain of my story is the biological barrier where I want to pass these things. However, the nanocarriers which I'm designing having specific size and shape, structural composition, which can specifically target the delivery. For an example, I have recently developed a nanocarrier which was injected in the tail of the mouse, and it circulated all over the body, and still it reached the blood-brain barrier and reached the retina. So the nanocarriers are tiny and showing massive impact, and that can be considered as the remedy for unmet medical needs. Thank you.
All right, great job. So up next, we're going to have Colby Schimelfenig, and the title of his presentation is Bose-Einstein Condensates as a Testbed for Quantum Behavior.
Physics is fundamentally made up of different regimes. What we call classical physics is what you and I live in on a day-to-day basis. Over the past century, however, physics research has gone beyond this classical domain, uncovering phenomena that cannot be explained using classical theories. New theories have become essential to accurately explain certain physical dynamics and properties we've observed in the universe. Quantum mechanics is a particularly interesting regime that shows the different dynamics that occur when particles are on a very small length scale. Unlike classical mechanics, where we often think of atoms as particles like billiard balls, quantum mechanics reveals that atoms also have a wave nature, in certain aspects behaving like that of light waves. Through a particular twist in nature, not only can we access the quantum realm through going to the very small, we can get there by going to the very cold. The colder an object becomes, the more spread out its inherent positional uncertainty becomes. Using this physical principle, in the 1920s, scientists Bose and Einstein theorized a new phase of matter that would occur when the temperature of a cloud of atoms dipped to near absolute zero. At ultra-cold temperatures, the atoms' quantum fuzziness started to overlap, and the collective group began to act like a singular macroscopic quantum object. In certain macroscopic quantum object, this new phase of matter was called a Bose-Einstein condensate. And it turned out to be a difficult form of matter to create, and was so revolutionary it garnered the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2001. Our lab, using a combination of ultra-cold laser techniques, vacuum technology, and hardware, is able to generate a BEC in about 1 minute. Using a BEC, we study fundamental quantum physics behavior. The beauty behind using a BEC to study quantum physics is in its proportions. The condensates we form are on millimeter length scales and behave in a purely quantum way. This enables us to take images of the clouds, to peer into the quantum world. Using examples of this stem from looking at the atoms as they form interference patterns, watching the atoms collide to form scattering spheres, and using them to form atom lasers. This research has direct applications in metrology, material science, and quantum circuitry, making them fundamental to modern physics and engineering. Thank you so much.
All right, so for our final contestant, we have Yinru Chen, whose presentation is titled Evaluating Gender Mainstreaming in Taiwan, a Case Study.
Nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Yinru Chen from BPA. Today, I'm going to introduce you my research on evaluating gender mainstreaming program in Taiwan. Gender mainstreaming program is a program that aims to install gender perspectives on all levels of the government. It has been implemented in Taiwan for more than 15 years. However, it has rarely been evaluated, and many experts are not familiar with this program. In my research, I evaluated this program with program theory and decision hierarchy. And I also consider evaluating a program just like thinking of buying a car. So When we think of buying a car, the first question we should ask is, do I really need a car? If I do need to buy a car, what kinds of car I should get? And after thinking all these questions and really buy a car, we still need to think like, how much money I need to pay to maintain this car? And do I need to replace any parts of the car so I can make it run better? This whole set of questions are questions that we will ask when we evaluate a program. We want to know whether the government has gone through careful consideration before adopting a program. We also want to know whether the program is well designed for its future implementation. We also want to know whether the program includes a correct instruments for its operation. So after the evaluation in my research, I found the gender mainstreaming program in Taiwan is not a fully functional program. There are several reasons for that. First, the Taiwan government did not go through a need assessment before adopting the gender mainstreaming program. Second, the program itself is not well designed. So according to the slide, you can see one part of the cycle is dropped off, so the program cannot be fully functional. Third, let's talk about the input and output. So the input and output. The Taiwan government only put limited resources for operating the full program. And for the output, it's very hard to identify and evaluate the output because the Taiwan government has never clearly identified their expectation for this program. Therefore, it's very hard to identify the output and the outcomes, and it's also very hard to evaluate them. Finally, let's talk about this program instruments for implementing this program. We found that almost 2/3 of the instruments have been put in practice since the first implementation of the program, which means that 1/3 of those instruments have never been put into practice since the beginning. So, of course, gender mainstreaming program in Taiwan is not functioning well. It is not a functional program because it is not well designed. The Taiwan government should at least revise the program rationale to improve its future implementation. Thank you for your listening.
All righty, thank you so much to our competitors. That was fantastic. I love this script. You all did a great job. I couldn't imagine putting a whole thesis into 3 minutes. So you should all pat yourselves on the back. All right, so now we're gonna allow our judges a few minutes to compile the scores. And we are gonna be back to announce the winners after a short intermission. So feel free to mingle. All righty, so the scores have been tallied and the results are in. And first of all, thank you to our judges for coming out and doing this. And also to College of Arts and Sciences, administration, and Carla, Alyssa for putting this on. All right, so I'm supposed to let everybody know that immediately following the event, we're gonna do pictures, so don't go anywhere. Just gather up here. All right, so in first place, in third place, and this is for a $500 award. We have Shamila Gopalakrishnan, and I hope I pronounced your name right. All right. That was awkward. Spoiler alert. All right, third place. For the $500 award, we have Nazua Idris. Congratulations. Yeah. All right, so in second place, for the $750 award, we have Desmond Aboagye. And first place for the $1,000 award and advancement to the university level 3MT competition, Nazua, Idris. All right, give all of our contestants a round of applause. And this concludes our event. Go ahead and stick around for pictures. And do we have waters or refreshments? You got waters? Okay. All right.